Welcome back to the Inflection Point, guys. And I'm super excited to invite a special guest. He's one of my favorite players on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And somehow I was able to convince him to join this podcast. His name is Jake Gardiner. And Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Jake, I want to start off by just asking you a really quick question. You want to just do a quick introduction? You played for the Leafs. You played for Carolina. Tell us about what you're currently working on with Cambridre.
Yeah, so, you said it. I played 10 seasons at the NHL, 8 in Toronto, which I loved. It was great. Great way to start my career as a 21-year-old coming to a big city like this. And then I played 2 in Carolina, which was a polar opposite. They're passionate about their hockey, but not like it is in Toronto, as you know. Had to retire, had some hip and back injuries, and have 4 kids at home, and decided I needed to do something outside of hockey that was meaningful, and I decided to join Cambridre Road. And so what I'm doing now is equipment financing for startup companies. So really, when they're looking to scale and grow their company, we help them out with financing any hardware or equipment, whether that's manufacturing equipment, robotics, you name it. If it's an asset and they're looking to scale, then we can help them out with that.
So, it's a big shift going from playing hockey at the highest stage that, every Canadian, I was born and raised in Canada, so we would always dream when we were kids playing hockey that we're going to score that game-winning goal or playing in overtime, hosting the Stanley Cup. You've done that. You've been there. And then you've also transitioned now into to the business side of things. And for a lot of athletes, especially those that are, just chiming in and listening to this podcast, that transition from playing sports at the highest level and then talking about the next career is very difficult. So what made you or what drove you to join Cambridre? Maybe talk a little bit about your experiences, and also to, the athletes out there that are thinking about making that transition, what can they expect in that journey?
It's an interesting one because you spend your whole life doing one thing, one goal in mind, right? To play in the NHL. And I a lot of kids do. I was fortunate enough to actually do it. But then it comes to an end at some point, right? For every athlete, as you touched on. Whether that's, high school, college, professionally, it's not an easy transition. And that's pretty much all I knew for the last, since I was 4 years old was playing hockey, and I had one goal in mind, like I said. When that does come to an end, you're almost, I wouldn't say you lose your identity, but you lose what you have done for so long. And you're like, okay, what's next? And it's not an easy spot to be in. I was lucky enough to have kids at home to distract me, right? But I'm like, okay, I can't be a stay-at-home dad forever. I need to figure something out. So I went. My brother's a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch, does very well. And I said, Max, I'm thinking I got to figure out what I'm going to do. Should I join you? He's like, that'd be awesome. So I started studying, did a few of the tests, and ultimately said, you know what, I'm not sure I want to get into this field. And so I turned to my sister Paige, who was at Cambridre Road as well with me, and she'd been doing it for 2 years at the time. And she's like, I love it. I get to meet such cool people with awesome ideas. Some of them changing the world, and we get to help them grow and scale. And I said, okay, I'll check that out, see what it's like. So I dove in about a year and a half ago, and really haven't looked back. But back to the point about what to do after hockey, it's not easy, or after you're done with the sport. It's not an easy transition. It's hard to even give advice because you just got to try to figure it out and take one day at a time and really figure out what you're into.
So, the thing about sports, the beautiful thing about sports is, a lot of people don't realize there's so many transferable skills that are built when you're playing sports, especially at the highest level. I mean, leading a company, working at a company. I mean, you're a VP right now at Cambridre Road. So you have people that you work with, that you delegate tasks to. You've got a team that you work with as well. How would you say that your career as a hockey player has helped you become successful in your current role at Cambridre Road? Has that translated?
Yeah, I think so. I think founders and athletes actually are pretty similar, where they have one goal in mind. It's, as an athlete, it's to get to that highest level, to win a Stanley Cup, right? As a founder, you're grow my company to the moon, right? You want to succeed. You don't want to run out of money. So in that sense, I think it's very similar. You know, you're gonna try to succeed at all costs, do whatever it takes, mentality.
Yep.
And then to your other question was, how's it translated? And I think at Camber Road, we mainly only hire athletes, and for a few reasons, athletes are extremely competitive, and don't want to lose at all costs, and we're gonna do what it takes to try to get it done, and I think that's a big part of it.
Would you say that hiring athletes, that's a really specific point you raised. Like at Camber Road, you guys hire athletes. Not a lot of companies can say that they target athletes, right? Because, you know, when it comes to athletes, they've performed at the highest level, but they may not have worked in finance, which is where you're kind of working right now. But you're saying that Camber's mindset and hiring processes, they want to go after athletes that, you know, have played at the highest level like yourselves, or have played, you know, maybe college level or whatever. So do you think that sort of competitive environment is what drives and fuels, you know, the growth for Camber?
Yeah, I do. I think actually all of our partners played hockey at a pretty high level too. And they are, you know, when they're hiring people for Camber Road, I should say, it's not because they have a finance background. It's their background in sports, and I think you know, as people that are driven, I think that's a big piece of it. So,
just trying to get the parallels with hockey and sport. In Toronto, everything is, as you know, a microscope, right? One bad goal, one turnover, whatever, and next thing you know it's like the end of the world, right? And we see it even today, like with Toronto. Everyone's like, oh my God, the sky's falling, we're not going to be in the playoffs or whatever. And I mean, you know, teams have their cycles. Like, I mean, we had a pretty good run, 10 straight seasons where, you know, we're in the playoffs, right? But everything is scrutinized here in Toronto. In finance, is a little bit different. You're investing in startups, right? And startups, they could be risky. Like, there's no guarantee that they are going to succeed and hit the moon, right? I'd say that the chances of you winning a Stanley Cup is probably almost the same, if not, you know, better than starting a company and becoming the next Google, right?
Yep.
So, but you're specifically targeting and working with founders. So, how would you say that's, you know, that translates, right? And what do you look for when you do decide to invest into a startup or finance a startup?
There's a few comments I want to add to that.
Cool.
On the hockey side. I don't want to pour salt in the wound, but Mitch Marner leaving is a tough one for Toronto.
Oh God,
as I think
heartbreaking.
we're all noticing at this point now.
Yeah.
And then I winning the Stanley Cup and having the next Google is a similar comparison. People forget, especially in Toronto, that there's one team that wins every year, and how hard that is to win 4 7-game series, how hard that is on your body, how hard that is mentally. But I mean, one team wins, right? And I think people tend to forget that it's, I know it's been a long time here, but it is very, very hard to do so. And now I'm forgetting your last question, because I went on that
actually,
rant,
you know what? Let's talk a little bit about the hockey side.
Okay.
I think you know, we are Toronto, so there's a lot of Toronto fans here. You know that the Mitch Marner trade obviously was well, it wasn't really a trade. It was him just leaving town and going somewhere else. We did get Nicholas Roy coming back, but that was hard. So let's talk about, like, from a team perspective, when you lose your star player. Imagine, I try to think of it from a founder's perspective, because as a founder, it's like almost losing your top sales guy or a top performer on your team. That has a pretty big impact on culture, on everything that happens in the business, right? So, you know, when you talk about, you know, the Leafs for just a second and them losing a player, right? Let's talk about it from a sense of, like, a founder losing a player. How hard is it for you to sort of recover from that? And what are some of the things that you would want to see happening to sort of get that team to the next level?
Yeah, I think that's a great example, because right away this season, you know, I think it was a big loss, right? He's the first power play, first line, first PK. And not only that on the ice, he's a big part of the locker room, right? He's a big part of the you know, team building, if you will. Bringing a team together. He's one of those people that does that just naturally, just because he's a great guy and a great teammate. And so from a business point of view, sometimes that can be hard. You need other guys to step up. I think people had to change their games. Austin Matthews wasn't scoring as much right away. I think a big part of that was not having Mitch, but he's found a way to find other ways to score. And so basically what I'm trying to say is that other players need to step up. Other people in your business need to step up and fill that void to be successful. And you're seeing the Maple Leafs have a little bit of a push here late. Might be too late. We'll see. Yeah, so that's what I'd say in that.
Well, and it can kind of like the parallels that I see is, even when you're running a business, you make these financial decisions, right? It always comes down to dollars and cents. And I think with Toronto and in Mitch Marner's contract, it was always scrutinizing the amount of money that he should be making, right? And sometimes these financial decisions lead to debates and a player leaving because it's like, well, he wants a couple $1 million more or whatever, right? So you make that business decision to save a couple $1 million and you end up losing someone, right? We do that in business too. Like sometimes you've got this star performer that's working for you and they're asking you for, hey, this is my comp, this is what it should be. And you make that decision of letting that person go because it's just too much, right? And so when you start to see that, I think the parallel that I see with hockey versus business is you get a similar impact. Maybe paying someone a little bit more, right, is worth it because you have that continued success in the company, right? Because it's not just the person that you're losing, it's the culture, right? And I think, you invest in you invest in founders, you finance founders and help them on their journey. How important do you think culture is? It doesn't have to be, a successful business just yet, like doing a lot, but how important do you think culture is in creating that business? And what do you look for when you finance them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge part. I think more so in the VC investments, the best VCs invest in founders that they believe in. Of course, the company has to, show some traction, have some revenue. But I think the culture of a company, you can go in to meet with founders and you're like, oh, okay, I like this guy. So from that aspect, I think VCs, like I said, the best ones invest in the best founders. They know they're going to do what it takes to win. And then back to the, paying people, in this case, Marner, right? You gotta weigh the amount that it's going to take to keep that person on, to keep Mitch on, to keep your whoever it is, maybe your sales leader on. And sometimes you don't even really know what the effects are going to be. So that's the tricky part about it. It's the tricky part about being a GM, and the tricky part about being a CEO. Well,
he was a complete glue guy. Mitch was the complete glue guy. Like as you said, he PK, right? Toronto's penalty killing has gone down the tubes after losing him. Because one thing about Mitch was that what I really liked about when Mitch played for us is, yeah, he was a forward, but he was he could play defense as well. And in fact, you'd sometimes see him, like, especially in overtime, he'd take over defense. And we saw that in Team Canada, right? We saw him just now at the Olympics where when he scored that game-winning goal, he was charged with all those positions. He was playing PK, he was playing, first power play unit with McDavid. And he was also, like, he was doing both sides, right? Like, you're wondering why he's not winning the Selke yet.
Yeah, right.
at this point, right? As a forward that does it all, right? But he's that glue guy in your team, and there's glue guys like that in business as well, right? And so when you talk about, like, from Camber's perspective, so just switching gears now to your role at Camber, you're financing startups. You're financing companies that may not be the next Google, may actually fail tomorrow. So what are some of the qualities and characteristics? And walk me through, like, your due diligence process a bit. Is it simply just the metrics that you look at, or is there other intangibles that you also look for in a business?
Mainly, so the biggest things we look at. So we're not experts in any field. We're industry agnostic. We're working with climate tech companies, robotics, basically anybody that needs hardware. So we rely heavily on VCs to do their background. When we see the BDCs, the big VCs invest in these companies, that gives our credit team comfort in knowing, okay, well, we don't have to necessarily do the research on these guys. We know that they're backed by some of these reputable VCs. So from a credit perspective, that's kind of the way that we look at it. The other part is the relationship piece and that's why I come to Toronto. That's why we go meet people in person to, if we really like a founder, we're going to fight a lot harder to get the deal done, to talk with our credit team, say, hey, this guy's the real deal, or this gal's the real deal. I've seen their product in person. It's really, really cool, and they got something going on there. So I think that piece is also pretty important as well.
So what's more intense, a Game 7 or winning a deal and convincing credit to push the deal through?
What's more intense?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to have to go hard on the Game 7. Yeah, that's not much of an argument.
Of course. No. Now, when you go with, working with deal teams and, your credit teams and convincing them that you want to, fund this founder and help them on their journey, do you also, stay in touch with, how do you process the post investment relationship with the founder? Do you continue to connect with them? Is it monthly? What are the updates like with them?
Yeah, so it really depends on each individual situation, on what the founder needs. We hope it's not a one-off transaction. We want to do more business with you. So yeah, I mean, checking in, whether that's weekly, monthly, or every couple months. And then every time I'm in Toronto, I'll reach out and see if they want to grab a coffee or meet up and see what's new, see if they need more equipment. That's a big part of it.
Being a hockey player, you get scrutinized for everything you do. There's public scrutiny because you played Toronto, and so on and so forth. Do you think that going through that journey, playing hockey and dealing with scrutiny, has that given you an edge in the boardrooms?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's not easy to play in Toronto. You see, most of the players that play here go through it at some point. For example, Morgan Riley's been here for 12 to 15 years. I don't know what it is now. Mm-hmm. And he even goes through it, right? He's poured his heart and soul into this team, and it's honestly the way it is here. It's unfortunate, but back to your question, yeah, I think it's mentally, it's really, I've gone through some stuff as well, mm-hmm. and makes it easier to go into boardrooms and we get a lot of no's in this business, right? People just aren't sure on it, and a lot easier to take a no.
So I want to noodle on that a bit. So, as you mentioned, there's two things that sort of came out of that I want to sort of noodle on. Mm-hmm. You talk about, the struggles that you faced as well. It's hard, to the fans, you're a hockey player. You want to see them perform well and do well and win games, but it's also tough mentally, right? So what were some of the things that you would do to sort of overcome the hardships that you faced? Can you comment on some of that?
Yeah, I think a few things. I mean, lean on your family and friends, those, and your teammates. Those opinions matter the most. There's always going to be someone behind a computer screen saying how bad you stink, or so try not to let that bother you. It does, still, but lean on your family and friends to really, mm-hmm. and your coaching staff and that's what they did here in Toronto. It was those guys that, get you through the hard times, right? They know what type of player, type of person you really are, mm-hmm. and so lean on the people around you.
You mentioned the second part of your the point you made was getting a lot of no's. Founders too. We get no's all the time. Mm-hmm. You want to try to convince someone to use your product, use your service. No. How do you overcome objection? What are some of the things that you do to sort of mentally not let that hit you with the no's, and just continue on that journey?
Just keep grinding. You gotta have thick skin. Don't take it personally that they don't want to work with you, or just keep creating those relationships and building your network to hopefully get some yeses along the way.
Yeah. Some of the challenges, as I'm just going to go back to your hockey days as well, because that was a big part of your life. There were challenges, there were ups, there were downs. And you said leaning on your family, leaning on your teammates. But what are some of the things that, athletes are different, right? Because you guys have a totally different system of doing things. Talk about your daily schedule. Like, how did you continue to perform at the highest level? And what are some of those transferable skills that you've learned now that you're an executive, for Cambridge Road?
Yeah, that was one of the biggest challenges actually after hockey, was not having that structure. Because for pretty much my whole life, it's like, okay, I mean, starting in elementary school, right? You go to school, come home, you do your homework, you go to hockey practice, or you play with friends, whatever it is. And then as you get to the higher levels, you're in the NHL, and you know exactly what time you're going to have to be at the rink. You know exactly when the first power play meeting is, when the next face-off meeting is, whatever that is, the workout, practice, the after practice, meal, the stretch. So that was all planned out, and to not have that structure anymore was probably one of the biggest challenges. I'm like, well, what do I do with my day now? And so getting back into the, working, my wife calls it a real job now. It's been nice for me to have that structure again, right? So, you wake up, feed your kids breakfast, get them ready for school, drive them to school, go to work. You're going to be there most of the day. And then now it's hockey practice for my kids.
That's right.
But that structure is huge for anyone, I think, and especially for an athlete that never had to think about it because it was always just what you did. Now to get back into that, I think has been great.
What was day in the life like for Jake Gardiner, the hockey player? Times did you get up? What was your daily routine?
It depended. I mean, on if it was a practice day, a game day, but let's just say it's a game day and we're in Montreal playing the Canadiens at 7 p.m.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Those were exciting. Exciting days. On the road, we usually skate at 11:15. So let me rewind. We'd get up at 8ish, 8:30, have breakfast at 9, bus over to the rink, get into your workout clothes, usually do a stretch or a dynamic warm-up. And then we'd have our power play meeting, penalty kill meeting, go on the ice for 30 minutes, get the legs going. Quick get back to the hotel, have lunch. Most guys were eating the exact same thing every time. So we had the same meal about 82 times every year, which was pasta sauce, salad, maybe a couple veggies.
Primo pasta,
yeah.
That's it.
That's right. Go back, try to get a nap, and then get ready for the game. So we'd take off for the game around 4:30.
Yep.
Get to the rink, play a lot of two-touch, which is, if you don't know what that is, we all stand in a circle, have a soccer ball, and you try to keep it up, which was a highlight for me. Who was
the best? Was it Nylander?
Willie's pretty good, yeah. Komarov was really good.
Oh, Komarov, yeah.
Yeah. But it was competitive, and it was a good warm-up. So that was always fun. We'd have a couple more meetings, go out for warm-ups, come back in, have the game, and then after the game, actually in Montreal, they had the best hot dogs. I don't know if you've ever had those. So we'd get those after the game, which was nice. And then fly home, get home around midnight, 1 o'clock, drive home, and then sit in your bed and stare at the ceiling for about 45 minutes because you're wired from the game. But and then do it again, depending on what the next day was.
Wow. You've worked and you've played with some of the best players in the league. You've played against them. You've played against Crosby, McDavid. You've played with Matthews. You've played with Mitch Marner. These are some of the most outstanding athletes in the space. And I always look back to that example where there's a basketball player who once said, "I'm closer to Michael Jordan than you are to me." Kind of thing, right? And you're I would say to the everyday lay person that's in Hockey Mad Canada or Toronto, you're closer to a McDavid than we are to you, right? So what sets apart the McDavids, the Matthews, the Marners of the world, in terms of their routines and the way they do things, from like the everyday person? Was there something special that they would do that was different? Everyone knows about Kobe Bryant and his huge regimen that he would have, waking up at 3 a.m. and doing 3 practices and all that kind of stuff. Did you see that with them as well?
Yes, I think the and this is going to be a vague answer, but I think the best players with the most longevity that play the longest are from day one, from when they're 21 years old, coming out of college or major junior, have a goal in mind to play in this league for a long time. And I think that's changed a lot in especially the last 10 years. You know, the health and wellness that's going on, the recovery. Players at a very young age are super dialed in, which when I came into the league, it was not like that. You know, we'd have the pasta, and I'm sure that even the meals are changing where they know exactly what to eat, avocado, whatever it is. I guess my point is, yes, the top players are super dialed into their diet, to their sleep, to their recovery, and they're in it for a longer career. And you see guys like Jonathan Tavares, James Van Riemsdyk, who's played forever, who's been since day one, he's like the most dialed in as far as recovery and taking care of his body. So the best players are very diligent about that and take it very seriously.
Do you find that parallel also with some of the best founders you've invested in? You find that maybe they're just a bit more dialed in than other people?
Yeah, for sure. They are. I think they don't think about today, they think about the future. And when stuff happens, they're maybe not prepared for it, but they are prepared for it in a sense where they know that it's not always going to go as you project. And when things do happen, they're ready to handle it.
Yeah, to handle that adversity. I think when you invested in the founders that you like, I'm sure you've got your favorites, the ones that you've backed. What sets them apart from all the other people that you've found over the years that you've talked to and you invest in? What were some of the characteristics that you can maybe talk about that, this guy, he's probably going to make it, because nothing is certain in life, right? He's probably going to make it, but this is the one I would do. How did you develop that conviction in that founder?
A couple things. I think if number one, they need to be very confident in what they're doing. That's probably number one. If they believe it, that's step one, right? If they think their company can grow to be a $1 billion company, and surprisingly, not all founders think that way. You'd hope they do, and that's their goal. And then as far as when you talk to somebody, you kind of know if they have that drive, how dialed in are they on their business, what's the next step, how are you going to get to that next level. So those are a couple things.
So I have some rapid fire questions that I wanted to ask you. Tougher environment. NHL locker room or talking to an investment committee?
Talking to an investment committee.
Why is that?
A locker room?
No,
Compared to a locker room?
Yeah.
A locker room's just like a safe place. You can do whatever you want in there.
Investment committee, you got to really.
I got to be dialed in. Yeah.
That's a game 7.
Yes.
Bigger adrenaline spike, overtime shift or closing day when you're making that investment into a company. You've gone through credit, you've convinced them, you got to fund them. Where do you get the bigger adrenaline? Is it winning in overtime or getting that founder funded?
Is it playing in overtime or winning in overtime?
No, okay. You know what? Winning in overtime.
Well, I'd say winning in overtime. That's a great feeling.
Okay, what about playing in overtime? Would it change?
I don't think it would. No?
Okay. All right. Okay. So, most misunderstood thing about being a pro athlete in business.
I'm not sure. I gotta think on that one. Most misunderstood.
Do people treat you differently because you're Jake Gardiner, the NHL player, or now you're Jake Gardiner, the Camber Road executive who's investing into companies and financing them?
That depends, I guess. It's been a challenge actually of mine in Toronto. It's like, do people actually want to do business, or do they want to talk to I'm fine either way. I love talking hockey too, but just trying to decipher on who's looking to work with me because of Camber Road or who wants to chat about hockey. Again, I'm totally fine talking hockey too.
One lesson hockey taught you that business school never could.
I shouldn't say it couldn't, but the work ethic that it takes to get to that level, the grind. I'm sure business school does too. I didn't go to business school, so.
I went to business school. It doesn't teach you that.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Business school, I think, we try to, try to gloss over the hard stuff and really focus on, yeah, well, this is a success story. Here's a template. Here's a playbook. Everyone talks about a playbook. I mean, there's a playbook in hockey. There's a playbook, in business as well. But as I'm sure you know, not everything goes by a playbook.
Mm-hmm.
You got to adapt. And I think those are the skills that I think a business school can teach you, is adapting to a certain situation. Like, what if something comes that's outside of your playbook? What happens then? So actually, that leads to a great question that I should ask you. The last, I guess, question that I had, which is, what happens, like, you're playing hockey and there's something that happens that's outside of a playbook. It's just something that's bang. It's just out of left field, right? That happens. How do you overcome that?
I mean, that happens a lot in hockey. A bad bounce.
Yep.
A 5-on-3 penalty kill.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta try to fight through it. A bad turnover, something like that. You have to have the memory of a goldfish at times, right? You gotta forget about it, move on, and then reset for that next shift.
Yeah, and I think that's also, I guess, what you would want to see in business as well. I mean, you got Mr. Trump and his tariffs, I'm sure, financing companies that's caused a lot of people to be like, one day there's tariffs, one day there's no tariffs, one day there's 15, one there's 10. And that causes a lot of uncertainty in the market, right? So resiliency, I think, is really crucial, right? In terms of, having that memory of a goldfish and just sticking to your vision and just moving forward with that. My last question to you would be, what advice would you give to your younger self? You played hockey at the highest level. If you go back, 21-year-old Jake Gardiner, playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, what would you have done differently? What advice would you give him?
Jeez, it's a hard one, man. What would I give? Advice I give? So when I was entering the league, I wasn't JVR. I wasn't Tavares, right? Like, not fully taking care of my body. That might be one thing I changed, but at the same time, I enjoyed the 10-year career I had. It was great. So I wasn't spending most of my time on a treatment bed and doing that type of stuff, which is great if you like that. But I guess maybe trying to do a little more of that and trying to make my body last a little longer. So, but no regrets on the way that I did anything. I think I had a great career and very fortunate.
Yeah, you had some phenomenal seasons. So you were an offensive defenseman, right? So you were great on the power play, and you did well. And you played with some of the greatest players. To wear a Leafs jersey. I mean, I think Matthews is well on the way to becoming a Hall of Famer, with everything he's doing. So it's definitely special to play. For the Toronto Maple Leafs. A part of me is a little jealous because obviously I was never that good to be able to play, but you achieved that dream. So, Jake, thank you so much for your time today. And guys, please reach out to Camber Road if you're looking for equipment financing. They're one of the best in the space, and go from there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, TJ. Thanks for having me.